Hi, this is Iso. Today we're going to look at the salivary glands, particularly the submandibular and the parotid glands. Just note that there are other salivary glands, accessory salivary glands around the oral cavity, but we'll focus mainly on these two. So you can see here we have a histology picture here of the parotid gland. This is a parotid gland, and I'll take you through the things that we should know about the parotid gland and the differences between the submandibular gland and the parotid gland. So here we have a low power image of the parotid gland, and it's lobulated. As you can see here, these are lobules. This is a lobule, another lobule, and a lobule here, and they are divided by connective tissue. You can see here, which we call septa or fibroconnective septa. Here, each lobule is divided. Like if we pick here, you can see here it's divided by a septa, a fibrous septa, and when we zoom in as we go to higher power, you can see each secretory unit in the parotid gland stains quite darkly, or can you say dark, eosinophilic, quite almost purple. And then we notice that these serous acina cells are pyramidal in shape and round, and you can see the nucleus is basally located. Let me just go into higher power. So this is the nucleus, and it's basally located. So the reason why it appears this dark eosinophilic area in the apical area of the cell is because it's got abundant rough endoplasmic reticulum used for protein synthesis. The apical cytoplasm contains eosinophilic secretory granules filled with digestive enzymes. So the parotid gland produces a purely serous secretion. It's serous secretions because these are all serous glands, if you remember. So its secretions include amylase, which digests starch, proline-rich proteins, lysozyme, lactoferrin, peroxidases. So these acini secrete and have, can I say, a contractile cell that helps them secrete. So the myoepithelial cell. So this is a myoepithelial cell. You can almost see it being spindled. So these typically stain, if we had to stain them with immunohistochemical stains, would stain with your P63, P40, carotene, SMA, that's your smooth muscle actin, also your smooth muscle myosin heavy chain. And if you want to push it further, you can also use CK5 or WT1. Anyway, that's just some immunohistochemical techniques if you really want to stain for the myoepithelial cells of the salivary glands to properly appreciate them. So now remember, the salivary gland also has a duct system, and we can identify them. There are two ducts that we can identify: the intercalated ducts and the striated ducts. So the intercalated duct, like this one here, is lined by a simple cuboidal epithelium, and that receives the saliva directly, and then it drains into the striated ducts, like this one here. So the striated ducts are also lined by a simple cuboidal epithelium, but if you notice the eosinophilic cytoplasm, especially towards the base of the cell, may not be fully appreciated on H&E, but you can see it forms these basal membrane foldings. You can see kind of like here, trying to point, or let me look for another striated duct and show you. Yeah, I think this could be a nice striated duct. So it kind of has these basal membrane enfoldings, but on better resolution microscope or electron microscopy, you could see these things. So the striated ducts modify saliva by reabsorbing sodium and reabsorbing chloride, secreting potassium and secreting bicarbonate into there. So remember that serous glands secrete an isotonic liquid. So saliva from the serous glands or the parotid gland is mostly isotonic. And then if you notice, you also see a few adipocytes within the salivary gland. So you can see this is an adipocyte there. So that's about the parotid gland. So remember, this is a serous gland. Okay, now we can move into the submandibular gland. So this is the submandibular gland. So if you remember, this is a mixed gland. It contains both serous and mucinous. The other histology concerning the intercalated ducts and the striated ducts is almost similar. They also have a myoepithelial cell layer, so they are double layered. So that helps them secrete or contract to secrete this saliva. So remember, I mentioned the submandibular gland is mixed. So you can see this is mucin. These are mucinous cells, basally located nucleus as well, but you can see the cytoplasm is contains rich mucin, and you can demonstrate this on a pass. If you stain with the pass, you see this highlighted as blue. And remember, these are serous glands. Okay, so there's one thing about the submandibular gland that you can know. This is submandibular gland. So when you look at the mixed architecture, you look for what we call serous demilunes. So serous demilunes are like a cap of serous cells on the mucinous cells. So you can see here, this here is the mucin, the mucinous here, and then the serous cells form a nice demilune, like a cap here. So this is what we call a serous demilune. So this is characteristic in submandibular glands or mixed salivary glands. And here you can see the striated glands here. You can see here those basally located striations here. Okay. So that's about the salivary glands. And if you have anything that you want to add or contribute, please feel free to put in the comments. And just one other thing, if you remember, the parotid gland, the serous gland, is most prone to infections, especially in young children. They tend to get mumps, and this tends to get swollen, and this gets edematous, and yeah, just something to remember. Otherwise, that's all I had for today, and thank you very much.